Hi, thank you for watching Digging to China. I'm Dong Xiong. On Tuesday, March 10th, the U.S. Congress held a hearing on global threats where Mr. Abel Haynes, Director of National Intelligence, testified. Russian disinformation regarding biological weapons was discussed at the hearing. The day before, Russian defense and foreign ministries issued statements that claimed the Pentagon was funding biological weapons laboratories in Ukraine. Then, Chinese diplomat and state media organizations echoed the same accusation at a news conference in Beijing in articles and on official social media accounts. Current and former U.S. officials and independent researchers say by doing this, China is trying to stir up the situation with fiery rhetoric and conspiracy theories rooted in Russian misinformation. White House called the allegations absurd and said the United States nowhere developed or possessed such weapons. The State Department called the claim total nonsense and said that there is no biological weapons laboratory in Ukraine. Top U.S. intelligence officials reiterated those points in a Senate hearing on Thursday. The Russian propaganda reinforced by the Chinese government in the middle of the war has ignited concern among Western officials. Analysts who study the propaganda from both countries said this was the first time they had seen an expansion of this scale around a conspiracy theory between Beijing and Moscow. Brad Schaefer is a senior fellow at the Coalition for the Security of Democracy, a Washington nonprofit group. He tracks propaganda from China, Russia, and Iran. He said, quote, "I can't think of another active propaganda campaign by Russia that has driven this level of boost from China. I haven't seen this volume around for anything like this," unquote. According to Western intelligence reports in Beijing, when Putin met with Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing on February 4th, senior Chinese officials asked the senior Russian officials not to invade Ukraine before the end of Winter Olympics. U.S. officials repeatedly urged Chinese counterparts to help avert the war. They even shared intelligence showing Putin's military buildup with Chinese officials, but they were reprimanded. On Thursday's hearing, CIA Director William Burns said that he believed Xi was disturbed by the Ukraine war, and it appears he was not told by his intelligence what would happen. Throughout the war so far, Chinese officials have publicly sided with Russia. They blame the United States as the cause of the conflict and emphasizing Putin's complaints about the NATO expansion. In the meantime, Chinese officials are also expressing concerns over the humanitarian crisis. On Tuesday, March 8th, on the video calls with the leaders of France and Germany, Mr. Xi repeated China's standard talking points on the war. He said China was very saddened by the outbreak of war again on the European continent. He did not say that Russia has started fighting. While Xi was speaking to European leaders, China's foreign ministry spokesman Zhao Lijian raised the issue of biochemical weapons in Ukraine at a press conference in Beijing, saying that Russia has found during its military operations that the U.S. uses these facilities to conduct biomilitary plans. Chinese diplomats, government agencies, and state media organizations have used official accounts on Twitter and other social media platforms to spread Ukraine Lab's conspiracy theory. Cao Yi, a diplomat at the Chinese embassy in Beirut, also posted the doctrine on Twitter in Arabic and English. The Global Times, a nationalist newspaper published by the Communist Party, posted an article which said the U.S. government was trying to incite anger against China over the Ukraine war by posting stories in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Voice of America. Other stories in Chinese state media accused Ukraine of using civilians as human shields, a Kremlin talking point. In the meantime, censors from Weibo and other Chinese social media companies have removed pro-Ukraine posts on their platforms. But there are a few anti-war voices in China emerge over Ukraine crisis. These voices are small but bold, contradicting Beijing's firm support of Russia. Local media reported that a man in Hangzhou held up a sign that read "Stop War" in English. In Chinese, he wrote, "Please do not support war in Ukraine." On WeChat, Chinese poet Yu Xiuhua published a new poem titled, "I Pray a Poem Can Stop a Tank." In China, public opinion is part of the state propaganda, but public opinion has its own force. It is a double-edged sword. Western officials put forward effort to reach Chinese netizens directly. The official Weibo account of the European Union has been fact-checking Russian claims with explanations and videos in Chinese. In one post, it responded to the claim that Russia is surrounded by enemies and acting in self-defense by saying, "No country or coalition is plotting to invade Russia. No one threatens Russia." This claim is often repeated on Chinese social media. Chinese netizens launched a WeChat campaign called Real versus Fake. One question was whether France would supply arms to Ukrainian Nazis. The French embassy in Beijing published responses and said such a move would be unimaginable, and asked the readers, are those who fight invaders to protect their homeland Nazis or the opposite? Ukrainians have also directly appealed to Chinese internet users. In videos posted on WeChat, a Ukrainian man fluent in Chinese appealed to Chinese residents to see through Moscow's misinformation. A Ukrainian woman in China posted photos of her bombed-out hometown of Kharkiv on Weibo, writing in Chinese, "This is the city where I was born." As the crisis drags on, more attempts are being made in China to break through Beijing's monopoly on information. Chu Yang is a 36-year-old journalism master student in Prague who worked in China. He posted a reference list for real news, including links to independent news outlets and sources for cross-checking information, like Ukrainian President Zelensky's Telegram channel or updates from the British Defense Ministry. Chu said, quote, "Seeing friends post fake news disseminated by Russia made me want to recommend more reliable sources of information. The bias of domestic mainstream media is very obvious." A collective of volunteers called China Fact Check has published near daily updates since the Ukraine crisis began. Students from People's University in Beijing and an education company called Plan C released the guides to fact-checking. It is obvious that Chinese people want to get more accurate information. They are very dissatisfied with the current social media environment and the information available there. The Ukraine war might help more Chinese people see sinister nature of the Chinese Communist regime. I am hopeful. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment and subscribe to my channel. Just click the subscribe button right here. I will see you again shortly.